Well, hello, my lovelies. It's Janet Perez with the Painted Saguaro, and I am here today with Paint Couture paints, and I'm going to show you how I took this plain oak dresser. You see these all the time from the 1940s and earlier, and I turned it into Tic Toc Fox. It's a steampunk piece and it's really cool. So sit back, relax, and watch me do this piece, and I will hopefully teach you some cool things along the way. So I started off by creating my own stencil with my Cricut machine. You can use whatever kind of stencil you want, but I also created a custom color, and I'm really kind of excited about this color because it's probably one of my most favorite colors that I use. And I achieve it by mixing equal parts of Firelight with Madagascar Mocha. And then I add about a quarter teaspoon, well, I guess it depends on how much paint I'm mixing, but in this combination, I mixed about a quarter teaspoon of the iron oxide liquid pigment, concentrated pigment into it. And now what I'm doing is I am stirring in some of the embossing medium texture. And I'm going to use this product to create a raised stencil on the sides. And I like to create a tinted raised stencil because I like to have that color peek through from the layers of paint that I put over it. So I'm just spreading this texture medium over the stencil, and I'm using a basic plastic putty knife. And I want to make sure that I get the entire stencil covered. I want the coat of the texture medium that's tinted with my custom paint. I want it to be even. I want it to be not too thick and not too thin. And I want it to be where it doesn't have any ridges or high or low spots on it. So you'll see me, once I get this spread over the entire stencil, I will grab my pastry cutter and I will smooth everything out just to get rid of those ridges that the edges of the putty knife create. So there I am. I'm just smoothing out that surface so that I don't have any ridges, so to speak. And then once this is all completely smooth and I'm happy with it, I am going to let it dry completely. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my tool, it's my weeding tool from my Cricut machine, and I'm going to just peel back that stencil that I have underneath this. And it's actually pretty easy, and it's quite satisfying too. So if you do choose to create your own stencil with the adhesive stencil paper that you can buy from Cricut or wherever your craft store, this is a really easy process to do. It is a little time consuming, but you can see the blue peeking through the texture medium, and that weeding tool just grabs all of the pieces really perfectly. So the next thing I'm grabbing here is my Coral Passion chalk style paint, and I have mixed it with a little bit of my Saltwash. Now, typically, when I use my Saltwash, I have it to what I like to call the texture of brownie batter. This is not that thick. I just wanted this to be textured, but not super thick paint, okay? So I'm stippling it on and covering the entire frame of the piece. And now I've grabbed some Truffle, which is a mineral paint color. And I'm just, as you can see, putting it along the edges. It won't be extremely visible. Basically, you'll be able to see peaks of it through the process of this paint job along the legs and whatnot. And it'll more or less look like dark stained wood when it's all done, coming through the layers of paint. There's no texture in the truffle paint. I'm just kind of layering it over the coral color. Next step is I'm going to add some duck egg, which is a real pretty soft duck egg color blue. And I'm putting that over my raised stencil. Now you'll see I spritz it with my, when you see that yellow nozzle spray bottle, that's my vinegar water. And that helps break the paint down just a little bit, just so that it doesn't dry up on me too quick while I'm doing this process. So it's important not to let your paint dry, is all I'm saying. And now I'm using one of my shop paper towels and just blotting it back, drying the moisture off, and basically what that does is that pulls the paint off the top of the stencil, the raised stencil, but it allows it to stay on the flat surface. Now what I've got is I've got some of that duck egg blue paint mixed with a little bit of Moxie by the Sea just to brighten it up just a touch. And then I've also added in probably about a half a scoop of my Saltwash. Again, not a thick, pasty combination, just enough to get it spread on there. And you can see I didn't make sure that I had 100% coverage. That's not what's important here. It's just getting those layers on there. Now this beautiful color is Peacock, which is a really beautiful, deep, dark, rich teal color. And I have mixed some Saltwash in with this color as well. And I'm doing full coverage over the entire frame of this piece in this color. Now you can see I'm spritzing it a little bit because I want to make sure that it keeps moving over the layers of paint beneath it. And you'll find sometimes when you're layering paint, your paint dries a lot quicker and it gets a little harder to move. So if you use a mist bottle, or if you use, I use both my vinegar water or I use my mist bottle, it simply allows your paint to be manipulated a little bit better. So you want to make sure that you keep it damp, not dripping wet, just damp. And you can see too that I'm kind of going into the inside corners of that inset area that has been stenciled, so that I'm creating sort of a vignette inside of there. My next step, I will soften that up a bit with a wash over it, but you'll see that that kind of helps bring depth and dimension to this portion of the dresser. So I'm just finishing that up, and then the next thing I'm going to do is grab my paint scraper. And this is where you can start to see all of those layers of color that we have laid down on here so far. The coral, the duck blue or duck egg blue, the truffle color, that clay color, that custom-made clay color that I put down sporadically in a couple of spots. So I'm just scraping away and, getting all the big chunks off so that I'm exposing those colors beneath that peacock color. And then once I get that part done, I'm going to take my mist bottle again, and I'm going to give it just a real quick rinse just to remove any chip dust or residual paint chips off of there, and wipe it down real quickly with a paper towel. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a sanding block and just kind of sand any parts that may still feel a little bit rough. You want to rub your hand over it and feel it, because people like to feel their furniture. And even though it may look really textured, you don't want it to feel super textured. You want it to feel soft to the touch. When somebody rubs their hand down the side of it, they don't want to feel it bumpy. So there's what it looks like. You can see all of those different colors that we've laid down in there. You can see the truffle, you can see the duck egg blue, you can see all of it. So now what I've done is I've grabbed an artist brush, and this is the color Moxie by the Sea. And I am just barely dabbing a little bit on up under the ledge of the top of this piece, and then letting it kind of drip down, and then creating a wash by spritzing it heavily. I don't want it to look like paint. I just want it to look like a soft, subtle wash on that Peacock blue to sort of soften it up a little bit and make it look a little more aged, because obviously I'm going for a very rustic, aged industrial look on this piece with the cog wheels and the clocks and the kind of battered look that it has. I want it to look aged, but I want it to look patinaed, okay? So this Moxie by the Sea color is going to add sort of a copperish patina to it. And then the next color I'm going to grab after I get this process done is I'm going to grab that custom clay color that I created. I'm going to add that to a 1/4 inch chip brush, and then I'm going to just touch that up in certain spots to kind of add a little bit more interest and a little bit more kind of a rustic, distressed look on here. And then that's really all there is to this part of it. So you can see I'm just kind of pulling it down and wiping it and rubbing it and spritzing it until I get it to have that subtle, aged, worn, drippy look. But I don't like actual drips, okay? And I even actually add a little tiny bit of the Coral Passion here to tie that in, and it just adds another softer patina hue to the side of this piece. Getting up into those corners to kind of age that out a little bit. And don't be afraid to use your mister bottle. If you don't have one, I highly recommend you get one. So this is the decoupage paper. It's called Tic Toc Fox. You've seen me decoupage pieces before, and there's 1,000,002 videos on how to decoupage. But what I wanted to show you here is how I fill in the piece. What I do is I envision what that paper would look like if it continued all the way to the edges of the drawer. I've taped off with blue painter's tape the actual frame of the dresser so that I don't mess up all the work that we just did. And I grab every color that I think I'm going to need. And for this piece, the colors that I used on it were my Madagascar Mocha. I used my Autumn Sage. I used Truffle. I used Pitch Black mixed with Espresso to make that sort of dark black brown you see along the bottom. And I also use that color along the edges. I use Peacock. I use my custom clay color, which was the one that we made at the very beginning with Firelight and Madagascar Mocha and the iron oxide. And I just go to town, and it's so fun because you really do feel creative when you're doing this. It's very therapeutic to sit and sort of envision what this image would look like if it went all the way, you know, the extra 4 inches or 5 inches or 7 inches, whatever the case may be, to carry that image all the way through to the end of your piece. So there I'm using, that's that Autumn Sage color, and I mixed it with a little bit of Cozy Beige actually to soften it up a little bit. There's my custom clay color. And then you're not going to see me making them because I've shown you how to do this before too, and everybody knows how to pour resin molds, right? But I used the Capital Crafts black resin to make some cogwheel molds for my hardware. And there was 2 different mold kits or mold sets that I have. One was from Finnabair and one was from Redesign by Prima. And I used both of them. I used the Redesign mold for my butterfly and my dragonfly. And then I used the Finnabair one for all of the little wheels and whatnot that I made. And I painted those using the new Paint Couture metallics. You guys, I'm so excited about these. They're not only coming out with, or they've not only come out with some metallic stencil paint, but they've also come out with some new colors in the metallic luxe line. So the metallic colors that I've used here, and you'll see them in a minute when I do the close-ups of the hardware. I've used the Luxe Metallic in bronze. I used the Luxe Metallic in Mercury, which is a new color, and it's so cool. It's like a dark, I'll point it out to you when I show it to you on the screen. I also used the metallic stencil paste in aged bronze. These are all new. Copper penny and Arabian gold. And even though it's called a stencil paste, I used it and painted it right over the resin, and it worked beautifully. I haven't even used it for a stencil yet, so I can't even tell you how that works. But pretty darn excited about it. It's great stuff. So I'm just wrapping up the finishing touches on the painted front of the decoupage paper. What I did on the top of this piece is I used a product, it's called Better with Age. It's a salvage timber product that actually pulls out the tannins in your wood. So I stripped the top of this down to bare wood, and then I let this product sit on it for about 24 hours. And then once that was done, I used the Lime Wash Antiquing Glaze and went over it, and I'm really thrilled with how the top looks as well. Those little knobs right there with the cogwheels in them, I got those on Amazon. But check out this hardware that I came up with by just using some resin molds and some wood glue and the pre-existing handles and pins from the hardware that came with this piece. I am super excited. I think it looks really fun. What do you guys think? Do you like it? So there's the mercury, the gold, the copper, and the bronze all right there. You can see all four colors that I used. Very cool. And there's Mr. Fox himself. So here he is, Tic Toc Fox. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, make a comment if you have any questions. Otherwise, I will see you next time when I bring you another innovative and new piece to create. Thanks for watching.